The man is obviously a lunatic. It's apparent that his actions can only be described as the ravings of a madman.
Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick video on the basic principles of going down rabbit holes, because I'm somewhat of a rabbit hole connoisseur. And I've been doing it a while, and I've learnt some things the hard way. It's not actually, just a safe, easy hobby. There's lots of pitfalls that you can get tricked by. So, without further ado, I'll just give you some basic things that you can either learn the hard way on your own, or you can listen to someone that's made all those mistakes and already learned the hard way, and avoid being, sidetracked or tricked or wasting your time or whatever. So yeah, hopefully you're smarter than I was. The first main thing to consider is your own sacred cows, your own presuppositions, because that usually means that there's been some sort of conditioning or brainwashing that's happened to you. So if something gives you an emotional response, like just the subject on its own, flat Earth, for instance, is a great one. And it's with all of them. Like, you talk to a normie about vaccines and they're going to have an emotional response, usually because of the conditioning on the TV. And it's every single thing. If even the notion of the Earth being flat makes you angry and emotional, that's a sign that there's been brainwashing. There's a ton of brainwashing. You think about the start of every movie has the Universal logo and all the globes and space stuff on TV. Space programs and that kind of thing. All of that stuff accumulatively builds up an emotional defense where you won't logically think about the subject. And I'm not just talking about flat Earth, that's just an example I'm using, but there's all those different red pill subjects that some people look into, and especially the toxic ones that people argue about. That usually means there's actually an indicator that there's something there usually, because they wouldn't bother putting a bunch of programming into people's minds about something that's just not legitimate. The next one would be humility. So approaching all subjects with humility. The epitome of, what is it? The epitome of ignorance is condemnation before investigation. Basically means you shouldn't talk about something, argue about something, get upset over something that you don't completely understand. So what I like to do, for instance, myself, is if a subject comes up and I'm interested in it, first thing I do is ask around, ask if anybody that I know knows about it, or knows somebody that knows about it who's really looked into it before and can point me in the right direction of the information I'm looking for. And then, again, if that subject makes me uncomfortable, realizing that, hey, there's probably some conditioning in there that I need to be aware of, and I need to try and look past that and look at this honestly and open-mindedly, rather than already have made a decision in my head about what the outcome's going to be before even looking at it. That's very important. So humility and not having sacred cows, massive. The next thing is there's a bunch of controlled opposition in this realm. So your Alex Joneses and your David Icke's, for instance, anyone that's popular and got like a bit of attention on the mainstream circuits regarding conspiracies, they're 99.9% of the time controlled. Joe Rogan's another really great example. These people are all controlled in some way, and what the devil does is he'll allow his minions to give out a little bit of truth to hook people. It's like fishing, and once you got the hook in their mouth, then they'll swallow a bunch of crap along with the good stuff. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. The next one is don't spiral. So spiraling is when you start getting black-pilled and losing your mind about things. Black-pilled means you're getting depressed, you're learning too much, and it's consuming your life, and it's making you depressed because there's nothing you can do about it. Ultimately, this stuff has to be taken with the God pill, or you'll end up blowing your brains out. Learning about how the world works is very depressing, and if you do not have faith in God, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to do. You can lose your mind. I do know of people who have committed suicide just because they take a bunch of red pills without taking the God pill. Everything's meaningless, everything's horrible, everything's evil, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's no ultimate purpose in life, so, off they go. So we have to be really, really careful and remain faithful throughout this process. it's imperative, in my opinion, that you start with the God pill, because the longer it takes you to take the God pill, the more challenges you've got and unprogramming you've got to do in the long run. Because once the Bible becomes your ultimate source of truth, then you need to realign everything that you've learned through the lens of the Bible, and that's a big hard process, and it takes, you got to unlearn a bunch of stuff all over again and go through it all again. So start with the Bible as your ultimate authority of truth, and then build from there, rather than learning a bunch of New Age stuff that's been snuck into these conspiracy circles through controlled opposition people, and then realizing the God and the devil stuff, and then having to unlearn all that stuff and start again. That's very tricky. So be very wary. There's a light world order and a dark world order. So I'll talk about a few different principles. That's a great one, the light world order and the dark world order. So there is a new world order, yes, and it is a bunch of very evil people behind it. But there's also a light world order, which is like Christ consciousness and humans becoming gods and attaining enlightenment, and aliens leading us to a one-world utopia. So you've got like an evil one-world system, and then a good one-world system. And this is all linked. So I'm just going to explain all of the different principles, and then you'll see that every single principle goes together with all the other principles. So working all this stuff out is like putting a puzzle together, and the puzzle pieces have to fit. Okay, and learning these principles help those puzzle pieces to fit. So another principle is the devil's onion. Basically, he set up his system with layers, and there's layers of deception. Every layer that you peel back of deception, there's another layer waiting to be unpeeled. And at the center of that onion is Christ, Jesus, is a relationship with your Creator and ultimate purpose and truth, and everything makes sense again. But you have to peel through those layers, and it's a very tough thing to do, peeling those layers back. So you're a lot better off being guided by somebody who's already peeled the layers back, can tell you where to start and then go from there, rather than doing it all yourself, layer by layer, because that's a very big, painful process. Aboros is another principle that you need to be aware of. Aboros is basically a snake with its tail in its own mouth. It's a system that eats itself. And over and over and over again, human civilizations do this. It's a cycle. Humans go in a cycle. And being aware of the Aboros snake, that principle, you'll see it over and over and over again in occult themes that they sneak into things, and just the patterns of the world and how things happen. The Aboros snake is a very important principle to be aware of and to be mindful of when you see it. So the Hive Mind principle, that's every system is connected and working to the same end, even though they seem opposing at times. So you've got like the Illuminati, the Jesuits, the Masons, the Zionists, communists. You've got all these different isms and stuff, and they're all seem to be fighting each other. And on the surface, they are. That there's wars going on because of that stuff, and there's lots of fighting. But ultimately, at the top, they all serve Lucifer. So it is a hive mind, and they all are working towards the same end, and using that opposition as, and this is another principle, all the principles are linked, and I can't explain one without explaining the others. So try to go back and re-listen to this again, maybe a second or third time, just so that you get all the principles together. Another one's Hegelian dialect. So that means that what the devil does is he sets up two opposing worldviews, or two opposing arguments, or two opposing systems, gets them to fight, feeds the flames, like sends in instigators and people that are paid, or their job or their mission is to create that conflict and drive that division further and further apart, so that it forces humans into one team or the other team. So they have to make a decision, and then they're stuck in either that team or that team. It's the same with like red and blue politics, the Republicans versus the Democrats. All those different opposing things that are like, you're either this or you're that, and there's no in between. You're not allowed to go in between. We're supposed to walk a narrow path. So a narrow path is another principle that basically just means stay out of that. Stay out of those divisions that the devil creates, and don't let yourself be put into one of those opposing teams, because he feeds both sides. He controls both sides through controlled ops, and you fall into a trap no matter which side you're on. So at the moment, we got like the freedom fighters versus the oppressive New World Order people, and you can fall into a trap on either side. We need to be really careful that we're walking that narrow path Jesus described. Sense of humour is also a massive one. I'd say that's probably the most important in all of this. Humility and no sacred cows, yeah, fantastic. But at the end of the day, you need a sense of humour to get through this stuff. Honestly, when you've got a group of people talking about this stuff, there needs to be jokes and humour, or it just gets too depressing. You need white pills, you need to look at positives, you need to look at the good and focus on that sometimes and be positive and uplifting to people and supportive, because people are going to spiral. There's no way to learn how the world works without spiraling once or twice. I've done it plenty of times. If I spiral, I turn all screens off and I get into the Bible, like a hard copy Bible, not a screen Bible on my phone or anything. A hard copy Bible that I can put in front of me, turn off all Wi-Fi, turn off all TV, everything, and focus on prayer and God. And that can, sometimes I need to do that for days just to make sure that I don't spiral, because spiraling is bad. And it clouds your judgment as well. Spiraling means that your judgment is clouded because you're feeling emotional about a subject. And then you can start believing things that might not be true. They might be a bit of a stretch. But because you're in that worked up state, you're just more susceptible to being tricked, basically. So remember that the people that the devil is using are expendable to him. They're going to kill each other. The conflicts are going to look legitimate. That's only because he does not care about humans. He hates us. He hates all of us, including the people that are on his team, including the people really high at the top that are serving him really well. He still hates them. He hates human beings. He loathes us. He despises us. So when you're looking into this stuff, you might feel overwhelmed and you might start feeling anxious and depressed. And that's the devil's using this information to do that to you. God won't give you a spirit of fear. We are to be wise as serpents, yes, and to know about this stuff, but we're also to be as innocent as doves. We're supposed to be holy. And this stuff should not cause you to sit in your bedroom all day on your computer losing your mind and spiraling online and disengaging with all the Christians around you. This information should push us to build communities. It should push us to support each other and look after each other and love each other and show each other things and look out for each other and be watchmen on the walls, be salt of the earth, and to try and to build a system that's a godly system outside of all this dark world order, light world order stuff, totally non-dependent on the system, totally non-dependent on all the trinkets that the devil uses to reel people into his kingdom. So we really need to get busy and work together to build something that's going to last, rather than just sitting here depressed about it and having mental breakdowns because we're learning so much information and not doing anything about it. Grow a veggie patch in the garden, for instance, is a great way to start doing something about it. So not relying on your local supermarket so much, maybe talking to local farmers and trying to line up local produce that you can purchase for your house, and healthy eating and exercise and looking after your kids and raising them, showing them that the devil's system, there's all these holes in it that you can just clearly see, and just pointing it out to them. Veggie gardening, raising livestock, researching skills that are going to be useful in a community, learning the Bible, learning God's Word, learning how to teach and support other people therapeutically. There's a ton of things that you can do about this, so you don't have to just sit there losing your minds, because that does happen a lot. I see that happen a lot. You don't want to fall into that depressed sort of, there's nothing I can do, apathetic sort of state. Please, God, come and take me back now. I don't want to be here anymore. We all go through that. You got to pull yourself out of it, pull yourself together, and do something about the information that you've learned. I'm not saying malicious stuff. I'm not saying violent stuff. I'm saying biblical stuff, biblical solutions to worldly satanic problems. That's it, guys. God bless, and I will see you next time. Peace.